The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the sound of footsteps. A man moved quickly through the narrow streets of the alien city. His coat was torn, his face tired, but his eyes burned with one thing: desperation. He was a father searching for his stolen daughter. For weeks he had followed every whisper, every rumor. Some said children had been taken by smugglers. Some said they were sold in dark markets far beyond the stars. None of the answers were clear, but he never stopped, because the thought of his little girl, crying and calling his name, never left him. The alien city around him was alive with strange colors. Towers rose high with glowing lights. Markets buzzed with voices in languages he barely understood. But beneath all this beauty was something dark, a world where the weak were sold, where the lost never returned. The father pushed past stalls and shady dealers, showing a small picture of his daughter to anyone who would look. "Have you seen her?" he asked, again and again. Most turned away. Some laughed. A few shook their heads with pity. His heart sank lower with every rejection, but he refused to give up. That night, a hooded figure approached him in the market. The alien's voice was low, filled with warning. "Your child may be taken by the syndicate. They deal in stolen lives. If you keep asking questions, they will find you before you find her." The father's jaw tightened. Fear was there, yes, but it was weaker than his love. He would face the syndicate. He would face anyone, just to hold his daughter again. The hooded alien gave him one last clue: a warehouse near the city's edge. "But be careful, human," the figure whispered. "Not everything inside belongs to you." Then the stranger vanished into the crowd. The father made his way through the rain-slick streets until he stood before the warehouse. Its doors were guarded by two creatures with sharp teeth and colder eyes. He waited in the shadows until they moved, then slipped inside. The air inside was heavy with dust and metal. Cages lined the walls, filled with shadows. Small forms curled in corners. The stench of fear and neglect filled the room. His heart pounded. Was his daughter here? He rushed from cage to cage, calling softly, "Anna? Anna, are you here?" But the faces that looked back were not hers. Alien children with bruises and hollow eyes stared at him, some too weak to even lift their heads. Then from the far corner he saw movement. A girl pressed against the bars, her skin pale blue, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She was thin, trembling, and silent. But when she looked at him, something inside him froze. Her eyes were wide with fear but also with hope. She was not his daughter. He knew that at once, but he could not turn away. Something about the way she stared at him tore into his chest, as if she too had been waiting for someone, anyone, to come. The father forced open the lock of her cage. The girl flinched at first, thinking it was another cruel hand. But when his rough voice whispered, "You're safe now," she hesitated, then slowly stepped forward. Before he could ask her anything, a noise came from the entrance. Heavy footsteps, voices shouting. The guards were back. Panic surged. He grabbed the alien girl's hand. "Come with me," he said, dragging her toward the shadows. Together they slipped through the side door as the guards stormed in. Their shouts filled the warehouse, echoing against the metal walls. Outside, the father and the alien girl ran through the rain, their breath sharp and heavy. His heart still ached. His daughter was not there, but the girl he had freed clung to him with desperate strength. When they stopped in a quiet alley, he finally looked at her closely. She was young, maybe the same age as his daughter. Her wrists were bruised from chains, her lips dry and cracked. She spoke slowly in broken words. "They took many, some human, some not." His heart stopped. "Human?" he asked. "Did you see a little girl? Brown hair, green eyes?" The alien girl's gaze shifted, fear and pain in her eyes. She nodded weakly. "I saw. They took to syndicate ship." Hope and terror crashed inside him. His daughter was alive, but in greater danger than ever before. And now this fragile alien girl was tied to his quest. He had saved her, but in return she had given him a path, a clue. As thunder rolled above the alien city, The father looked at the girl and whispered, "I will find my daughter, and I will keep you safe too." The night swallowed them both as they disappeared deeper into the city. Hunted by shadows, driven by a bond neither had chosen but both now needed. The rain did not stop. It poured over the city like a curse, washing the neon lights into rivers of color. The human father moved through the dark alleys with the alien girl clinging to his side. His heart was heavy. He had not found his daughter, but this strange girl might be his only key to her. They stopped under a broken shelter where shadows hid them from the main streets. The father finally turned to face her. She sat on the wet ground, her thin body trembling. Her pale blue skin was covered with bruises, her wrists raw where chains had once cut deep. She looked so weak he wondered how she had survived this long. "What's your name?" he asked. His voice was rough but soft. The girl stared at him for a long moment before whispering, "Lyra." Her voice cracked, as if it had forgotten how to speak. He nodded slowly. "Lyra, you're safe with me now." But inside his mind raced. He had no time. His daughter was still out there, taken by the syndicate. Every second counted. Yet this girl, this stranger, was now tied to him. He could not leave her. Lyra's glowing eyes studied him as if weighing his soul. "You look like her father," she said slowly. He froze. "Her?" She nodded. "The girl." The humans took. Brown hair, green eyes. They called her Anna. His chest tightened so hard it hurt. It was his daughter Anna. Lyra had seen her. That single word, her name, gave him more hope than he had felt in weeks. But before he could ask more, voices echoed down the alley. Harsh alien tongues, heavy footsteps. The guards had not given up. They were hunting. The father grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her up. "We have to move." She stumbled, her body weak, but she forced herself to run beside him. They darted through back streets, past broken doors and flickering lights. Every corner felt like a trap, every shadow like an enemy. At last they reached an abandoned building, its windows shattered, its walls cracked. Inside was only dust and silence. He pushed the door closed and leaned against it, breathing hard. Lyra collapsed onto the floor, gasping. For a while they sat in the dark, only the sound of rain dripping through holes in the roof. The father looked at her, torn inside. He should be chasing leads, searching for Anna without delay. But this alien girl sat before him, chained by fear even though her wrists were free. "Why did they take you, Lyra?" he asked quietly. She hugged her knees, her voice barely a whisper. "I was sold. By my own blood. They said I was worthless. The syndicate bought me cheap." Her words trembled. "But I saw things. Things I should not." He leaned forward. "What things?" Her glowing eyes lifted to his. "Ships, cages, human children. I saw your Anna before they moved her. They spoke of selling her far away, to a place no one returns from." His hands clenched into fists. Rage boiling inside him, he wanted to storm into the syndicate's fortress right now. But he knew if he rushed blindly, he would lose everything. He had to be careful. Lyra reached out suddenly, her small hand touching his arm. "They will kill you if you go alone," she said. Her voice shook, but her eyes were firm. "I know their paths, their signs. I can help you." The father stared at her, shocked. She was just a child, yet her words carried the weight of survival. But trusting her meant risking everything. Was she truly trying to help, or leading him into another trap? Before he could decide, a sound split the night. Glass shattered at the far window. A group of syndicate hunters stormed in, weapons drawn, their eyes locked on him and the girl. "Run!" he shouted, grabbing Lyra's hand. They dashed through the back door as energy blasts scorched the walls. The alley exploded with light and fire as the hunters gave chase. The father pulled Lyra into the chaos of the city streets. Dodging carts, pushing through crowds, the hunters fired wildly, but the noise of the market shielded them. For every step they gained, danger followed close behind. Finally, they reached the sewers, hidden beneath a broken grate. He shoved it aside and lowered Lyra in, climbing after her. The smell was foul, but it was better than being shot. The hunters' voices grew faint above them. In the darkness of the tunnels, their breaths echoed. Lyra held onto him tightly, trembling. "You saved me again," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, you saved me. You gave me hope." The truth was clear now. This alien girl was no stranger anymore. She was a key, maybe the only one, to finding his daughter. And though she was chained by her past, she had already begun to change his path. As the sound of the hunters faded, the father looked into the endless black of the tunnels. He whispered to himself, to his daughter somewhere out there, "Hold on, Anna, I'm coming for you." And beside him, Lyra whispered softly, almost like a promise, "We will find her together." The sewer tunnels stretched on like a maze of darkness. The air was damp and heavy, dripping with water from the city above. The human father held a small light in his hand, its glow weak but enough to keep them moving. Beside him walked Lyra, silent but watchful. Every step echoed like a warning. The syndicate hunters would not stop. They had seen his face. They knew he had freed one of their captives. Now he was not just a desperate father, he was a target. Still, his mind was fixed on one thing, his daughter, Anna. Somewhere beyond this maze of streets and dangers, she was waiting. He could almost hear her small voice calling to him in the night. And Lyra, this broken alien girl, was the only one who had seen her. They reached a ladder and climbed up, emerging into another part of the city. This place was different, darker, quieter. Neon lights flickered weakly, and the air smelled of smoke and rust. Shadows seemed thicker here, and every corner whispered danger. "This is syndicate ground," Lyra whispered. Her glowing eyes scanned the walls. "Their marks are here." She pointed at strange symbols painted in red on a broken wall. The human leaned closer. The marks looked like claws slashing through circles. "Crude but sharp, what do they mean?" he asked. Lyra's voice dropped lower. "It means this street belongs to them. Anyone they don't control disappears." The father's chest tightened. He had no choice but to follow these signs. Every clue, no matter how dangerous, might bring him closer to Anna. He motioned for Lyra to stay close. Together they walked through the narrow streets where even the air felt unfriendly. They passed alien merchants who stopped talking the moment they saw him. Eyes followed them from windows, cold, suspicious eyes. The human could feel it. Everyone here knew the syndicate's power, and strangers did not last long. At one corner, Lyra tugged his sleeve. She pointed at a doorway covered with heavy cloth. The mark was painted above it, fresher than the others. "They moved children through there," she whispered. "I saw it before." His pulse raced. Without thinking, he pushed through the curtain. Inside was a dim room filled with smoke and strange smells. Tables lined the walls and creatures sat drinking, laughing too loudly. In the back, another door stood guarded by two armed syndicate thugs. The father's eyes locked on that door. Something told him his answers were beyond it. But walking straight through would mean death. He looked at Lyra, her thin figure shaking, yet her eyes sharp. "You trust me?" he whispered. She nodded without hesitation. "Always." Before he could plan more, a loud voice filled the room. One of the thugs at the back had noticed them. His sharp teeth glinted as he sneered. "Human, what business brings you here?" The father forced his voice steady. "I'm looking for work." The room went silent for a moment, then laughter erupted. Harsh, mocking laughter. "A human. Work with us." The thug roared. "You'll be dead before sunrise." But while their laughter distracted them, Lyra leaned close and whispered, "There's another way." She pointed toward a narrow stairway hidden behind barrels. Without wasting time, they slipped toward it, the crowd too busy laughing to notice. The stairway led them into a back corridor. The walls were damp, covered in more syndicate marks. At the end was a door with metal locks. Behind it, faint sounds reached their ears, voices and the cries of children. The father's heart almost burst. Was Anna behind that door? He reached for the lock, but before he could touch it, heavy boots pounded behind them. The syndicate had noticed their escape. "Run," Lyra hissed. They darted down another hallway. Twisting through the maze of rooms, shouts echoed, weapons fired. Sparks exploded against the walls as they barely avoided death. Finally, they burst through a back exit into the cold night air, their breaths heavy, their bodies shaking. They had escaped again, but the truth burned inside him. His daughter had been so close. As they crouched in the shadows, Lyra touched his hand. Her voice soft but steady. Do not lose hope. I saw her symbol. He turned sharply. What symbol? She drew on the dirt with her finger, the same claw mark but with a circle around it. It means the syndicate is moving her. Not selling, not yet. Relief and fear hit him together. She was alive, but still in their grasp. He swore under his breath. I'll get her back. I swear it. Lyra looked at him with glowing eyes, a strange sadness in her face. You saved me from chains, she whispered. Now let me help save her. The father realized then that this girl was not just a burden. She was part of this fight, whether he liked it or not. The trail of shadows they followed would bind their fates together. And somewhere in the distance, hidden behind syndicate walls, his daughter waited. Her survival depended on the choices he would make now. The city never slept, but in its deepest corners, silence was more dangerous than noise. The human father and Lyra moved through narrow alleys. Their steps light, their hearts heavy. Behind them, syndicate hunters spread like shadows. Always searching, always close, Lyra led the way now. Her glowing eyes scanning walls for the marks she had learned to fear. She was weak in body, but her mind carried memories of chains, and those memories showed her where the syndicate walked. At last, they reached an old quarter of the city, where towers leaned like broken teeth and the streets smelled of smoke and blood. A single building stood taller than the rest, its windows dark, its doors guarded by armored figures. Lyra's voice trembled as she pointed. This is their den. I was kept here before. The father stared at it, his fists tight. If Anna was anywhere, it could be inside. The thought of her alone in those cages burned his chest. Fear whispered to him, but love spoke louder. He would go in no matter the cost. He waited in the shadows until 2 guards moved, then dragged Lyra with him through a broken sidewall. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of oil and rust. Chains clinked in the distance. The dim corridors were lit with flickering red lights that made every shadow look alive. They moved carefully. Listening, at one turn, the father froze. Ahead were cages stacked against the wall, filled with small figures. Alien children pressed their faces against the bars, eyes wide with hunger and fear. Lyra's body stiffened, her lips whispering, like me, all like me. The father's heart tore apart. He wanted to free them all, but every second mattered. He scanned the cages desperately, whispering his daughter's name. Anna. Anna. But her face did not appear. Only strangers, broken and silent. Then a sharp laugh echoed, deep and cruel. The father spun. A group of syndicate thugs stepped from the shadows, armed with shock rods and blasters. Their leader, a tall alien with jagged scars across his face, sneered, A human rat in our den. Do you want to join the cages too? The father pushed Lyra behind him, his eyes burned with fury. Where is my daughter? The scarred alien laughed louder. Your daughter? Many daughters pass through our hands. They are worth more than you can imagine. He raised his weapon. But you won't live to see her again. The thugs charged. The corridor exploded with violence. The father fought with raw desperation. His fists struck like hammers. His body moved with the strength of a man who had nothing left to lose. One guard fell. Another screamed as the father grabbed his own weapon and turned it against him. But there were too many. Blades slashed. Rods cracked against his back. Pain burned through him. Lyra screamed, trying to pull him away. Yet the father refused to fall. He roared like a beast, swinging wildly, fighting until blood covered the floor. Then in the chaos, something happened. Lyra lifted her trembling hands, and a strange light glowed from her skin. The air around her shimmered. A wave of force burst outward, throwing 2 guards against the wall with bone-breaking force. The father froze for an instant, stunned by the power. Lyra collapsed to her knees, gasping, but her eyes glowed brighter than ever. The syndicate thugs hesitated, fear flickering in their faces. The scarred leader snarled, "So the little slave hides a gift? That makes you worth even more, girl." He lunged at her, but the father blocked his strike, rage exploding inside him. He slammed the leader into the wall, fists striking again and again until the alien crumpled. Breathing hard, the father grabbed Lyra and pulled her toward the exit. The sound of more guards echoed down the halls. "We can't stay," he growled. Together they stumbled through a back passage, every step filled with pain and urgency. Outside, the cold night air hit them. The father nearly collapsed, blood dripping from cuts across his arms and face. Lyra helped steady him, though she could barely stand herself. Her voice shook. You saw what I am. He looked at her, chest heaving. You're not a slave, he said firmly. You're not a tool. You're a child who deserves freedom. Her glowing eyes filled with tears. No one had ever spoken to her like that. For the first time since her chains, she felt like more than nothing. The father's heart still burned with grief. He had not found Anna. But Lyra had given him something new, proof that together they could survive. And perhaps fight back, as syndicate alarms rang across the city. Echoing like thunder, the father whispered into the night, I'll find you, Anna, I swear. And no one will stop me. Beside him, Lyra tightened her grip on his hand. We will find her, she said, her voice stronger than before. The shadows of the city stretched long before them, and the blood of their fight still stained the ground. But in that darkness, a fragile bond had been born, a bond strong enough to challenge the syndicate itself. The night stretched on, cold and restless. The father and Lyra hid inside the ruins of an old building at the edge of the city. The walls were cracked, the roof broken, but it was the only shelter they could find after escaping the syndicate's den. The father sat against a wall, his body aching from wounds. Blood stained his torn clothes. His hands trembled from both exhaustion and rage. He had fought, he had bled, but still he had not found Anna. Beside him, Lyra curled close, her glowing eyes dim. She had barely spoken since her strange power burst forth. The memory of it lingered in the air like fire. It had saved them, but it had also revealed her secret, a gift she had been forced to hide all her life. The father finally broke the silence, his voice rough but steady. You risked yourself back there. She looked at him slowly, whispering, I thought I would die if I stayed silent. I did not want to watch you fall. Her words struck deep. He had expected fear, but instead he found loyalty. For a girl who had been sold and chained, trust was rare, yet she had given it to him. He sighed, leaning his head back against the wall. Lyra, I need you to be honest with me now. What do you really know about the syndicate? Where would they take Anna? Lyra's hands tightened around her knees. She hesitated, then spoke softly. They don't keep children for long. They move them, trade them, hide them in shadows, but... She paused, fear trembling in her voice. There is a fortress outside the city in the wastelands. That is where the syndicate keeps the most valuable ones before sending them away. The father's heart pounded. His daughter might be there, but the wastelands were dangerous, filled with storms and raiders. No sane man walked there alone. I have to go, he muttered. But as he stood, pain stabbed through him. His knees almost gave way. His body was breaking. Yet his will burned stronger than ever. Lyra caught his arm, steadying him, though she was small and weak herself. Not alone, she whispered. If you go alone, you won't return. Let me help you. He looked down at her, torn inside. She was not his daughter, but she had already risked her life for him. Still, taking her deeper into danger felt wrong. You're just a child, he said, shaking his head. Her eyes glowed brighter, fierce despite her trembling voice. So was Anna, but they chained her. Do not leave me behind. If you fight for her, then I will fight for her too. The father's chest tightened. He saw her pain, her fire, and the truth in her words. They were both broken by the syndicate in different ways. And maybe together they could become something stronger. A quiet moment passed, then he placed his hand on her shoulder. All right, Lyra, we'll face this together. But you must promise me, you stay alive. No matter what. Tears filled her eyes, but she nodded for the first time. She felt like she belonged to something, not as a prisoner, but as a partner. The next morning, they moved through the city again. Every street was filled with danger. But together they moved with more certainty. The father asked fewer questions now. He trusted her instincts. Lyra watched the marks, the movements, the whispers. She knew the syndicate's signs in a way he never could. At one point, they stopped at a small food stall in a hidden corner of the market. The father had only a few coins left. He bought a piece of bread and handed it to Lyra. She stared at it for a long time as if she didn't know what to do. Then she tore it in half and gave him the larger piece. You need strength more than me, she said quietly. His throat tightened. For weeks he had felt alone in this fight, but in that moment, he realized he was no longer carrying the weight by himself. Later that night, they hid in the shadows near the city gates. The guards were many, the syndicate symbols carved deep into their armor. Beyond those gates stretched the wastelands. And somewhere within them, Anna. Fear pressed against the father's chest. But then he felt Lyra's small hand slip into his. Her glowing eyes looked up at him with unshaken resolve. "We are strangers," she whispered, "but our fight is the same together. We will not break." For the first time in a long time, he believed it. The bond between them was fragile, but it was real. It was more than survival now, it was trust. As the gates loomed before them, guarded and deadly, the father whispered to himself and to the daughter he still had to save, "Hold on, Anna, I'm coming, and I won't be alone." The night air howled as they prepared to step into the wastelands. Their bond stronger than their fear, the wastelands stretched like an endless graveyard. The ground was cracked, the sky burned red with dust. Winds howled across the empty land, carrying the taste of metal and ash. The father and Lyra walked side by side, their shadows long under the dying sun. For hours they crossed the barren land. Every step felt heavier than the last, but the father's heart beat with fierce determination. Somewhere ahead was the Syndicate fortress. Somewhere inside was Anna. His daughter's face haunted him with every breath. Lyra's glowing eyes scanned the horizon. She was quiet, her thin body trembling from exhaustion. But her spirit never bent. She had been a prisoner once. Now she was walking back into the jaws of the same monsters. Yet she did not turn away. At last the fortress rose before them, a giant structure of black steel and stone. Spikes lined its walls and towers loomed high. Its gates were guarded by creatures armed with rifles that glowed with deadly energy. Fires burned in pits around the outer walls, and screams echoed faintly from inside. The father's fists tightened. His blood boiled at the thought of Anna trapped behind those walls. But charging straight through was suicide. He looked at Lyra. "We need a way in," she nodded, pointing toward the side of the fortress where the walls were broken in places. "There are drains," she whispered. "When I was captive, I saw slaves dragged through them. If we follow the old pipes, we can enter unseen." They crept through the dust until they reached the drain tunnels. Rusted bars blocked the way, but the father pulled with all his strength until the metal bent enough for them to slip inside. The tunnels were dark and foul, dripping with sludge and decay, but they pushed forward, the air thick with silence. Finally, they emerged into the underbelly of the fortress. The ground above shook with footsteps and machines. They moved carefully, hiding behind shadows. The father's heart raced, his eyes darted to every door, every cage. Searching desperately, "Anna," he whispered under his breath like a prayer. At one chamber, they froze. Inside were dozens of children, alien and human, locked behind bars. Their cries filled the air, small voices begging for water, for food. Lyra clutched the father's hand tightly. "This is where I was once before they moved me," she whispered. The father's chest ached. He rushed to the bars, calling, "Anna? Anna, are you here?" Faces looked up, thin and broken, but none were hers. His heart sank like a stone. Before he could react, the door behind them burst open. Syndicate guards stormed in, armed with shock rods and blasters. Their eyes burned with hate. "The human! The traitor girl!" One shouted. The father pushed Lyra behind him. Rage burning through his veins, the fight exploded. He grabbed a rod from one guard, striking him down. Lyra's strange light sparked again, bursting from her hands and throwing another guard against the wall. But more kept coming. The narrow chamber filled with chaos, blades clashing, children screaming, sparks flying. The father fought like a man possessed, every strike powered by the memory of his daughter's smile. At last the floor shook with a heavy step. A massive figure entered, the fortress commander. His armor gleamed black and his eyes glowed red. In his hands was a weapon longer than the father's arm. The commander's voice boomed. "You think you can break us, human? You think one man and one broken girl can fight the Syndicate?" He swung the weapon and the father barely dodged. Sparks exploded where it struck the wall. The fight was brutal, the father was strong, but the commander was stronger. Every blow rattled his bones. He was thrown against the cages, pain ripping through him. "Stop!" Lyra screamed. Her glowing hands rose again, energy building around her. The commander turned, snarling, "Little slave, you dare?" Her power burst like a storm. Blinding light filled the chamber. The commander staggered, roaring in rage. The father seized the chance, grabbing the rod and driving it into the commander's chest with all his strength. Sparks exploded. The giant fell with a deafening crash. The children in the cages cried out, some in fear, some in hope. The father leaned on the bars, panting, his body screamed with pain, but his spirit refused to break. Lyra fell to her knees, exhausted, her light fading. The father pulled her close, whispering, "You saved us again. She shook her head weakly. No. We saved each other. But his heart was still shattered. Anna was not here. The commander's words rang in his mind. They had taken her further, deeper into the syndicate's grip. As alarms blared through the fortress, echoing like thunder, the father knew this battle was not the end. It was only the beginning. The fortress burned around them, smoke and fire rising into the wasteland sky. He looked at Lyra, at the frightened children in the cages, and whispered through clenched teeth, "I will find you, Anna. No matter how many walls I must burn, no matter how much blood I must spill, I will not stop." And as the flames roared higher, the father and Lyra prepared to face the storm that was yet to come. The fortress burned behind them. Smoke rose into the wasteland sky like a black wound. The father stumbled through the dust, Lyra's small hand gripping his. His body ached, every step cut with pain, but he refused to stop. They had survived the syndicate's den. They had freed children, but his daughter Anna was still missing. They stopped in the ruins of an old watchtower, safe for the moment. The rescued children huddled together, whispering in fear. Their eyes looked to the father as if he were more than a man, as if he were the only hope left, but inside he felt hollow. He had fought with everything he had, and still Anna was gone. Lyra sat beside him, her glowing eyes dim from exhaustion. She had pushed her strange gift too far. Her body trembled as she leaned against the wall. For a long time neither spoke. Only the sound of fire in the distance filled the silence. Finally the father whispered, "I was so close, Lyra, so close. And still, I failed her." His voice cracked, his fists tight with rage and despair. Lyra turned her head slowly, her voice soft but steady. "You did not fail. You fought. You bled. You saved me. You saved them." She nodded toward the children huddled together. "Without you, they would still be in chains." He shook his head. "But Anna is still gone." The pain in his chest was unbearable. "What good is saving anyone if I cannot save my own daughter?" Tears filled Lyra's eyes. She reached out, placing her small hand over his. Her voice trembled. "You don't see it. Do you? The syndicate fears you now. They will move her again. But they cannot hide her forever because you are not alone anymore." The father looked at her. At the fragile girl who had once been nothing but a stranger in chains, she had become something else, his guide, his ally, perhaps even his second daughter in a way he never expected. But hope came with a price, and he knew it. Every step deeper into this war would put Lyra in more danger. The syndicate wanted her as much as they wanted him. Her gift had marked her. They would never stop hunting her. That night, as the children slept, the father and Lyra sat awake. Staring into the fading fire, he spoke quietly. "Lyra, if I must choose between saving Anna and saving you, I don't know if I can bear that choice." Her glowing eyes met his, steady despite the fear inside them. "Then don't choose," she whispered. "Save us both, fight for us both. That is the only way." His throat tightened. He wanted to believe her. He needed to believe her. At dawn, they prepared to move. The wastelands were too dangerous to stay. The father gathered the rescued children, promising to guide them to safety. But before they could leave, a voice echoed across the sands. It was cold, metallic, amplified by unseen speakers. "Human, you have taken what belongs to us. You think you won a victory, but you have only delayed the end. Your daughter is still ours. She screams for you even now." The father froze, his blood turning to ice. The voice was syndicate, cruel and mocking. Lyra clutched his arm, whispering, "They are trying to break you. Don't listen." But the words cut deep. Anna's face flashed in his mind. Her small hands reaching for him, he wanted to scream, to run straight into the fire and tear the galaxy apart until he found her. Instead, he drew a deep breath, forcing his rage into strength. He turned to Lyra and the children. "We move now, we survive, and when the time comes, I will tear the syndicate apart piece by piece." The journey back toward the city began, but something had changed. The father no longer carried the burden alone. Lyra walked beside him, her steps weak but her spirit strong, her hand never leaving his. As they reached the edge of the wastelands, the father looked once more at the horizon, his voice low but fierce. "Anna, I will find you. No wall, no chain. No army will keep me from you." Lyra looked at him, her glowing eyes filled with a strange light. "And I will be there when you do," she whispered. The father finally understood the truth. He had set out to save one daughter, But along the way he had gained another. Saving Anna was still his mission. But saving Lyra had given him strength he never knew he had. The syndicate had stolen his child. But in their cruelty they had also created something they could never break. A bond of strangers who had become family. As the dust rose behind them and the city loomed ahead, the father knew his war was far from over. But now he had more than rage driving him. He had hope, fragile but unshakable, and hope was a weapon no enemy could ever chain.